Hi, I'm Courtney Harder with Case IH. In this video, we are going to discuss preseason maintenance items on the 2000 series Early Riser row unit. The first thing that we want to look at prior to each season is our parallel link bushings. We want to check for any wear in those bushings to see if they're allowing our row unit to have any side-to-side play. To check that, we want to put a jack underneath each row unit and lift that row unit up high enough that the cross beam of our lower parallel link is no longer making contact with the backbone of the row unit. If there is side-to-side play, this is when we are going to be able to see that. If we have excessive side-to-side play, then we want to figure out which parallel link bushings need to be replaced. After that check is done, we are going to look at our gauge wheel arms. With this, we are first of all going to check for shimming in the gauge wheel arms. How we do this is we want to push into that gauge wheel arm and give it a spin, and we want it to make some contact with our opener disc when we do this. So it should move the opener disc, but it shouldn't directly drive that opener disc when we push in on that gauge wheel arm. So we want to hear that there's some contact, we want to see it as well. The other thing that we want to check for is just pick up on the gauge wheel arm and check for any side-to-side play in this gauge wheel arm. If we've got significant side-to-side play, we want to check the pivot pin that holds the gauge wheel arm on. We want to check that for excessive wear that could be causing that play. Next, we are going to look at wear on our opener discs. Now that we've removed our gauge wheel, we are going to talk about the service intervals on opener discs. So the 2000 series opener discs start at a 15-inch diameter, and the replacement interval on those is 14.5 inches. As for shimming these opener discs, they come pre-shimmed from the factory, and we still do have that leading and trailing opener disc. As the opener discs wear, you can take one shim off of the trailing opener disc. Typically, by the time you need to go further than that, it is time to replace one or both opener discs at that point. As for checking to see if the shimming is adequate, we want the discs to make some contact, but not enough that revolution of one is going to actively drive the other one. So that's what you want to check for when you are taking out shims on those opener discs. Next, we are going to look at the scrapers. So on the 2000 series planter, we do have a spring-loaded scraper, so it should remain in contact with these opener discs. But if it gets to the point where it's worn down to the point that it's not cleaning off that opener disc, that means it's time to replace that scraper. Beyond that, if you are seeing buildup of mud on the inside of the opener disc, we do have a kit available for internal scrapers, which are basically these scrapers, but also mounted on the inside to clean off the inside of those opener discs. So ask your dealer for more information on those if you feel that those are needed. And lastly, we're going to look at the furrow firming point and seed shoe. So our replacement interval for this on a 2000 series planter is we are looking for any wear in that seed shoe. We replace both of these as one set. So as soon as we need to replace that seed shoe, we're going to replace both components. And we are just basically looking for any holes or excessive wear that would cause this seed shoe not to fully hold those trench walls open as we place the seed. We've removed one opener disc to show a side profile of the seed shoe. Another thing that we want to note is for our left-hand opener disc, that's being held on by a reverse threaded nut for that left-hand side. We also want to note that regarding our seed shoe and furrow firming point maintenance, we are going to replace this part when our seed shoe is worn up to the point where it's no longer fully holding that trench open. So if we've got quite a bit of wear upward on the seed shoe, we want to replace that. Another thing to note is we've got quite a bit of side-to-side play in this furrow firming point, and that's completely normal. It was designed to follow the furrow created by those opener discs, so it's designed to move freely like that. Next, we are going to talk about maintenance on our closing discs. The next thing we're going to look for in our row unit inspection for pre-season maintenance is our closing discs. So these closing discs start out at 9 inches and we're going to replace them at an 8-inch diameter. Next thing to look at on our closing disc is we want to again make sure that that pivot pin for our cast arm for our closing discs is properly lubricated. And thirdly, you can take these you can take the closing discs and lift them up and check for side-to-side play. That would indicate excessive wear in that pivot pin. Next things that we want to look for are in our pneumatic press wheel, and those include checking that your chevron pattern is still intact. We want to make sure that we can still leave a good chevron pattern in your soil. And in dry, dusty conditions, we can also get dust buildup on the inside of the wheel. So if you can turn that wheel and you can hear that dirt built up inside of the wheel, you can take that wheel apart by taking that rim off and cleaning those wheels out. Next in our series of preseason checks is the process of zeroing out our row unit. So we are going to check how the depth of each row unit varies from each other row unit across the toolbar. So to do that, on a planter with worn components, we like to do this with using 2x4s underneath each gauge wheel. So what we did is lifted the planter up, set 2x4s underneath each gauge wheel, as you can see here, and set the planter back down. From there, we press our depth handle in, go all the way up, and pull it back down until we hit a stopping point, basically until those gauge wheels have hit the 2x4. And we check that stopping point. That is D4 or Delta 4. And that puts us at 1.5 inches, which lines up with our 2x4. So we know that this row unit is zeroed out. From here, we are going to check the rest of the row units across the toolbar and see if they vary from that position. And if so, we will need to contact your local dealer to get those row units zeroed out. The next thing we are going to talk about for preseason maintenance checks is the clean sweep system. The last preseason check that we need to do on our row unit is for the clean sweep system. So the first thing that we are going to look at is the boot on the clean sweep cylinder. We're going to check that for any cracks. If that boot is cracked, then go ahead and replace it. The next thing that we're going to look at is the fittings and the air lines on our clean sweep cylinder. We're going to check for any cracks in those fittings. The next thing that we want to look at is check that your residue managers are free spinning and also don't have any side-to-side play in them. There is a bearing in those residue managers. It is sealed, but there is a grease zerk to act as a dust barrier for that sealed bearing. The next thing that we want to look at is the rear bushings that are the connection point, the pivot point for our residue managers. So we just want to check any side-to-side play, any excessive play that we've got in those residue manager arms. If we've got excessive side-to-side play, then we'll replace whichever bushings needs to be replaced at those rear pivot points. The next thing we'll do is go to our air compressor, and I can use buttons on the valve slices for our lift and lower valves for the clean sweep system. I can use buttons underneath of those valve slices to pressurize the system and listen for air leaks. So now you can listen for air leaks in that system and repeat with each row unit. With that, this concludes the series of videos on the Early Riser row unit preseason maintenance. For more information, contact your Case IH dealer or consult your operator's manual.